Hello and welcome, Ian and Simon. Lovely to see you both.
Hello, Katerina.
Hi.
So Ian White is a consultant and Simon McCall is a principal at Sherwood Consulting, and together they are the authors of our new special report, Your Role as General Counsel, How to Survive and Thrive in Your Role as GC. How does it feel now that it's out?
Well, great, because it was quite a lot of work to write over the winter months of COVID. But great to actually see the final version. Let's hope everyone else feels the same too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they will.
It's just really nice that an idea which sounded interesting has turned up into something that you can put in your hand. That's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, why don't we start thinking back to those winter months? What made you write the report? What was the thinking behind it?
We didn't think there was a huge amount of similar guides out there, and certainly I'll speak from my experience, but I'm sure Simon will have things to say as well. I felt when I was a GC, it would have been useful to have had a guide like this, just that I could pick up from time to time when I was facing some challenges, or indeed when I was looking at career choices and what I wanted to do. So I think from that perspective, it was something we thought would be useful, not just for General Counsel, but also for other people. So I think back to some of the relationships I've had with my CEOs, they'd have probably benefited from being able to have this and understanding a bit more about the role.
Yeah,
I think it was, we just wanted to give something to people that they could go into a new role, this role, with fresh impetus, fresh ideas, practical tips and hints how to go about it.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the report that the role of GC has never kind of been more demanding. So what's, in sort of your opinion, are the key challenges for GCs today, and how have you aimed to help address these in the report?
I mean, I think one of the things is that GCs need to have a strategy for the legal department. I think in the old days, it was probably good enough to say, well, we're all busy doing lots of important legal work, and I don't think that sort of cuts the ice anymore. So, which is why we've done a chapter on strategy, how to develop and create a strategy, and thinking about communicating that. We talk about the elevator test, that if the CEO, he or she, standing next to a lawyer at the bottom of the lift and says, so why do we have all you lawyers up on the 4th floor? You've got a better answer than, well, we're all busy. And that's why having a strategy is important. You know, we're here because we're in a highly regulated environment, and we want to make sure that the business can open for business tomorrow.
Absolutely. What about you, Ian?
I think the role has developed a lot, and certainly the current crisis we're going through, I suspect that in-house legal teams, like lots of other departments, will be hit, and it may mean that the GC's got to do more with fewer people, fewer resources, maybe asked to take on more functions. I mean, certainly I've come across GCs when I've been doing my board evaluation work who now have to take on risk as another function. So I think, you know, it's going to be a challenging time, I think, going forward. I think it's always quite a challenging role, particularly, again, if you're combining it with being the company secretary. I think, you know, you'll get lots of things coming to you because people don't know where else to send them to. So you have to turn your hand to a lot of things. You can't always just pick up the phone to external counsel. You may have to deal with them yourself or your team. So I think the workload is likely to increase, and I think the demands generally of the role are likely to increase over the coming months.
Yeah, challenging time for everyone. And you cover a sort of lots of different aspects in the book. So as Simon mentioned, strategy. and various other aspects of the role. Are there any specific chapters that you think are especially important or will be especially useful to readers?
Shall I start somewhere? Well, hopefully all of them.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think one of the useful chapters might be if you are asked to take on the mantle of being the company secretary as well. And I think General Counsel often underestimate the scale of the challenge there. I think, oh, it's just an administrative role, whereas actually for most companies of any size, it's much more than that. And it's dealing with the board, obviously. And so there's much more of a people dynamics element, which is very important. I always think, if you're in the boardroom as the company secretary, it's a group of directors and you're the only person who's not on the same level. And that in itself can be very challenging. And I think it's getting, building up the confidence with the board that you can do the job and that you're there to support them. It also means if you're combining the role of being GC, that your priorities will shift naturally to dealing with the board rather than actually being able to concentrate on some other matter. So it's something you need to make sure that the rest of the company knows that unfortunately maybe has to be your focus, and that you may have to let other things take longer. I mean, if you've got a team behind you, then clearly you can help them support you in that. But I think it is a challenge. It's challenging because, as I say, you're dealing with people. You've got to have that credibility and gravitas in the boardroom. You've got to be able to answer lots of different questions with no prior notice. So I think if there's, for me, there's one thing I've learned from my career, it's don't underestimate how challenging taking on that role actually is.
Very interesting. Anything to add, Simon, or does that say it all?
Yeah, I think for me, the one that felt important and interesting was a chapter headed the first 100 days, because I reflected on me going in-house twice for the first time and starting other roles. And I think it's just worth paying attention to how you do start off. I'm sure most people will think, yeah, I do need to think about this, because it is a chance to create an impression, create a different impression, because some people will be going into the role having external, and there's temptation to think, well, everyone knows me, I just get on with the job. But I think there's a chance to have a different impact. You've got colleagues around you, not clients who you send an invoice to, and that's very, very different. So I think plotting, planning, preparing for those first 100 days and trying to create a picture of what success will look like at the end of that 100 days is really important. So we've got quite a few tips and ideas about how to spend your time, what to think about, what to do during those first 100 days.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sort of useful tips that sort of are weaved throughout the report, sort of really useful, practical things you can use in your sort of everyday work. But maybe to finish off, you could both give us your one key piece of advice for General Counsel today.
Okay, it's part of that first 100 days. I'd say really think about, check on, hone your listening skills.
I think for me, Kat, it would be very much that you've got to, and I say this whether you're a general counsel, you're an HR director or anything else, you've got to constantly reinvent yourself and plan your career more, because nobody will do it for you these days. And careers don't necessarily have an upward trajectory anymore. They have ups and downs. So I think in your role of general counsel, just be aware of that. I mean, Simon and I are both people who've done very different things, from being lawyers to now being coaches and consultants. And I wouldn't say I would necessarily have done it in that that very ordered way of planning my career, but I think it's really important to do that.
Oh, sure. Sounds very interesting. Thank you very much, and thank you very much both for your time and for everything you've done throughout the writing of the report. And we look forward to our customers seeing it and then getting use from it.